Hey guys, it's Sarah and today is Booklist Thursday. This is a video series I do with my friend Lindsay over at Lindsay's Little Library. And every Thursday we bring you some sort of list or book topic that we plan to talk about for the week. And this week we are going to be doing a follow-up to our summertime bingo that we did in the beginning of the summer. We created a bingo board, made it available to everybody just for fun summer reading. Check off whatever you can, whatever you want to. And today we're going to tell you how we did. And because I'm an overachiever, because I want to finish something, I 100% did everything. I marked off all of these. These are a pretty good combination of specific book prompts and activities. So it wasn't all books. It was just things that you could do that were pretty easy, things I was planning to do anyway, so it wasn't like a huge deal. And then some of them are specific books, and I did double up. So if I had a book that fulfilled a couple of prompts, I checked both those prompts off. So this was by no means every square is a different book. I wish. No, that's not what I was able to do, but I did complete all of them. So we're going to go through the prompts. I'm going to tell you which books I read, what they fulfilled, and yeah. Okay, so let's start with the prompts real quick. There were 4 of them, like activities. So the first one was try a chapter. I did that. I made a video about it. I'll link it down below if you're interested. Second one was go to the library. I did that. Check out a new BookTube or Instagram account. I did that. And then participate in some reading sprints, which I did. I try to participate in Krista's reading sprints from Books and Jams. She usually does one every other weekend. She'll do live reading sprints, and so I try to get on those when I have time. So I counted that for those. And there are a couple of more activities, but they actually do coincide with some of the books I read. So we're just going to go through the books, and I'll tell you which prompts that these fulfilled. First one is The Lucky One by Nicholas Sparks. This fulfilled 3 prompts for me. It was a 5-star prediction. It is a backlist book, and it's a book that's been adapted. It was made into a movie. So 3 prompts right off the bat. This was one of the first ones I read, so I was really happy about that. And didn't love this one. This was kind of the book that made me decide whether or not I wanted to continue reading Nicholas Sparks or not. And the answer is no. I have since unhauled just about all of his books that I have on my shelves. I do have one on my gifted cart that I do plan to read because it was something that was sent to me. So I will plan on reading that one. But all the rest of them that I purchased myself, I have already put them up on Pango for sale, including this one, because of the ones that I had and the premises, I felt like this was going to be the one that I would like the most, and I gave it 3 stars. It was just very underwhelming. It was very predictable. It had a military theme that I really thought I was going to be able to connect to, but I really didn't. And yeah, I was kind of almost narrating the book as it was going along and able to really predict what was happening. And I was like, meh. So, womp. So yeah. So if I read the one that I felt I was going to enjoy the most and I just didn't, there's no point in keeping the rest. So I think I'm probably done with Nicholas Sparks, except for one that I will probably try to read before the end of this year because it is on my gifted cart. But yeah. Next one that I read is one that I've actually already unhauled and I sold it on Pango, but that is In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. And this one fulfilled 2 different prompts. It was a nonfiction book, and it was a book that had 3 or more colors on the cover. And this one was another 3-star read. I don't know. The thing about this nonfiction book is it's a memoir about Carmen's personal experience being in an abusive relationship with another woman. And what does that look like? And the reason this book is so popular is because it's told in a very different way. It's told through the dream house, basically, which is, them living together. And the dream house as this, and the dream house as this. And it's different things that pull a lot of metaphors into it. And so there's 2 different ways it's told. It's a linear timeline where you're following her relationship, getting into a relationship with this woman, things that they were experiencing, how it progressed, how the abuse started, why she was still with her, all these things. And then there were also chapters that were metaphors. And most people love the metaphor part of it and think that that's very unique and it was entertaining and it kept it going. The metaphors took me out of the story. for me, it was hard to follow them. And then when one came up, I was out of the linear timeline and I just felt like I kept getting pulled away, like I was being distracted by something. And then we would go back into linear and then I was in it again. I liked the linear timeline thing. I liked it being told like a memoir, like here's what happened. I didn't like the metaphor stuff. So the thing that makes it unique and that everyone loves about it, I did not. So for me, it didn't personally work. I gave it 3 stars. The writing was great. She is a wonderful writer. This is the second book that I've read from her, and her writing is really good. So I would not be opposed to picking something else up from her at all. Probably not a nonfiction that's told in this type of narrative, to be honest, but if she writes any more fiction, I'll pick it up because her writing is fantastic. But I did give this one 3 stars. The next one is a book that I checked out on my Kindle from my library, and that is The Change by Kristen Miller. And this one, it fulfilled the prompt of a 2022 release. So it came out this year. This was another 3-star read. This is another 3-star read. And this is kind of at the point during the summer when I felt like I was getting into a reading slump because I was reading some things like these are the order that I read these books in as well. So I was kind of like, I'm not feeling this right now. But this one was a very, very popular release. It was very hyped up and I decided to pick it up. And this book follows a group of women who, when they start going through the process of menopause, they inherit some magical powers, like actual magical powers that they can't explain, things that help them navigate a very tumultuous world that they're living in, where men are the root of all evil, basically, is what it is. There really wasn't a great man in this book at all. There was one that was like fine, but still managed to find some fault with him. So the problem I have with this book, here's the thing. I liked the magical power element to it. I wanted more of that. I wanted more explanation of why they got these powers, like what's happening that they got these powers. But there was no explanation. It was more like, you're going through menopause, here's some powers for you. Okay, but why? But why? And is it happening to all women or just these 4? So there wasn't a whole lot of explanation around that, and that's what I wanted more of. There was also a murder mystery element to this story that I really liked. I really liked that. The biggest problem I had with this book was how anti-male this book was, and I'm sure that's on purpose, obviously, but it started making me mad at men, and I didn't like that because I'm not a person who gets mad at men all the time. And I was just like, there's no redeemable qualities to any of these men. Like, you're in a room literally full of men and they are all acting so terribly. Is that unrealistic? No, but it's happening to every single woman, always, every single time. Like, really? There's no good men. None. Like 0 good men. And yeah, that bothered me a lot. I'm all for girl power, feminism, like, sure, that's fine. But this just seemed like, let's deliberately paint men in such a bad light that there's no hope for the male species. And that I didn't like. It was over the top for me personally. And that's a personal preference. That is the unpopular opinion on this one because this one is very, very highly rated and people love it. So take with that what you will. That's just my opinion on this one. I didn't love it. I like certain aspects of it. And if it had just been that and less death to all men, I probably would have enjoyed it more. Okay, the next one I picked up because I said, I need a really good, strong male character. I picked this up right after The Change. I was like, I need something that has a good male that will give me faith in their gender again. Like, I just need something like that. And this gave that to me for sure. So I read Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. And I am borderline obsessed with this book. I absolutely loved it. I read it so quickly. I did not want to put it down. I loved these two characters. I loved what happened. I loved that it was complicated. It wasn't like super easy. Was it predictable? Yeah, a little bit. I mean, there were some things that were happening that I wasn't able to predict, but it was such a good love story. And I fell in love with these characters for sure. And this is like people from two different types of situations in their lives. There's a 10-year age difference between them as well. The woman is older, and they just start forming a relationship. And they're trying to keep it casual, trying to keep it cool. But of course, feelings start happening, and how complicated those feelings get. And, I loved it. I loved it so much. I could not stop reading it. The banter in here between these two was fantastic as well. And this one fulfilled two different prompts. It was a new to me author. I had never read Abby Jimenez before. I want to read all of her books now. And this is one of Lindsay's favorite authors. So knocked 2 off of that. Okay, the next one I have, actually, this book only fulfilled a activity prompt, which is to read outside. I read this sitting by the pool, and that is The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is the first book in a young adult series, and this is teenagers being recruited by the FBI because they have some natural talents that can help the FBI with profiling criminals and murderers and all that stuff. And so they start this program where they're recruiting teenagers. Now, they can't formally employ them because they're not of age, but they hire these teenagers to work on cold cases and see what they can do and see if they are able to use their talents elsewhere. Like, just kind of a chance for them to prove their talents will be helpful in the FBI in programs and stuff. So I loved this. It was fast paced. It was a lot of fun. I did not see some things coming, which is great. And yeah, it's the first book in a series. I'll definitely continue reading the rest of them. But it was a good time, and I read it by the pool. And on a side note, I did do a summer TBR list also in the beginning of the summer. And this was on here because I picked out a prompt for my TBR jar for a random color generator. So it was like this really dark yellow here. So I did read this one after picking that up. And then it just so happened I read it by the pool. So it worked for both. And I gave this one 4 stars. Okay, the next one I have is The Maid, and this is by Nita Prose. And this one was a book that a friend picks for you. My daughter Kaylin picked this one for me to read off my Book of the Month shelf, and another 3-star. This one really just let me down. I think it was too hyped. I think it was not marketed correctly, even though I went into it knowing that it wasn't marketed correctly because it's marketed as a thriller. It is not. It's a cozy mystery. It's a very light, cozy mystery. And even though I went into it with those expectations, I was still disappointed. I don't know. Part of it was the main character, I could not tell where she was from. And I don't know why that drove me nuts, but there were things about, it seemed like maybe she was in New York City. They talked about the US dollar, that was the cash that they were using. But then she would have tea time and talk about crumpets. And the way she would talk sometimes sounds like maybe she was talking British and she would use British terms. And I'm like, where are we? And it was never specified what city they lived in. And that kind of drove me nuts because I was like, I feel like they're in the US, but maybe they're not. And it makes a difference. When I'm trying to imagine their surroundings and things that are happening and things they're saying, it makes a difference to me. So that kind of really bothered me to a point where I didn't enjoy it quite as much. And then I did not love the ending either. I kind of felt like some things were happening that I was like, really? And Molly the maid was very naive, which I think kind of lended to the story a little bit, but she was very naive. And I was just like, open your eyes. You're a grown woman. You need to be aware of these types of things, you're aware of this, but you're not aware of that. Really? So it just kind of, I don't know, it really fell flat for me. And I just didn't really enjoy my time reading it at all, unfortunately, because this was another one that was really hyped up and everybody loves it and was talking about it. And yeah, I gave it 3 stars. Okay, so the next one that I read was The Marvelers. This is by Danielle Clayton. This is the first book in a new middle grade fantasy series. I read this one with my friend Amanda from The Curly Reader, and we both loved this book. And this one fulfilled a couple of prompts. This one was an activity for Good Job Adulting, because I definitely picked this up a couple of days where I had really, really busy days and I just had to do appointments and make phone calls and do all these things. And by the time I sat down, I was like, I'm done. I'm done adulting. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to read for a little while. So I definitely marked this off for that one. This one also has stars on the cover. So there are little star constellations up here and there's little stars throughout. So I counted this for that one. And I also included this one for a favorite genre because I love middle grade fantasy. So I would definitely consider middle grade fantasy a favorite genre of mine. So this one follows our young girl, and she is going to this academy that is actually in the clouds. It's literally in the clouds, and it's a magic school. She is going there as one of the first girls to practice conjure magic, and no one else at the school does this. They're just now letting her in, and it's almost like an experimental type thing. So she walks into basically the lion's den because nobody takes her seriously. They think that conjure magic is not relevant and can also be used for evil. There's been some past things that have happened with conjurers that cause that type of thinking, and so she's very much kept at arm's length by everybody around her, including her teachers. And so you see her trying to get into the school and acclimate and make friends and make enemies. And there is also an evil person who has escaped from their prison in this city and in this world up in the clouds. And so that is definitely become a threat to the school and to the students. And so you see them trying to figure out how to prevent anything bad from happening. And of course, she's going to be getting into the middle of it. But I absolutely loved it. It was fantastic. I gave it 5 stars. I can't wait for the second one. So definitely one I'm keeping my eye out for. Okay, and the next one that I picked up is Things We Do in the Dark by Jennifer Hillier. And this one fulfilled the prompt to read a book recommended by one of your favorite content creators. And for me, that was Audrey from Chapter and Converse, who was begging me to read this book. And I finally did. So the interesting about this one is I picked this up at the end of March. And it took me till over the summer to pick it back up and start reading it because I got a little bit into it and then some life things happened that really threw me off and I never went back to it. So I finally did over the summer. I picked it back up and I was like, okay, I'm going to read this. And I ended up loving it. So I'm really happy that I did. This was my first book by this author. It will not be the last. I'm very excited to read more from her. And this one follows a woman who is being accused of killing her very famous husband. And the evidence against her is pretty strong. So she's trying to prove her innocence. And then we're dipping a little bit into what happened in the past and just things like that. So, because she's definitely got some dark secrets and secrets that are still happening in the present and just all sorts of different things. So, loved it. Loved the dark themes in here. And I ended up giving it 4 stars. It wasn't like unputdownable. Obviously, I put it down very early on and took a long time for me to pick it back up. But yeah, it was really, really good. So definitely going to be looking forward to more from this one. Okay, the next one I picked up is Maybe in Another Life. This is by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And this one was a couple of prompts. One was to drink a cocktail or a mocktail. I drank a beer while I was reading this one. And it's also to read a book by one of your favorite authors. So Taylor Jenkins Reid is one of my favorite authors. And I was happy to get to this one, which is one of her backlist books. And I really, really enjoyed this one. So this one ended up being the first one from her that I've given 4 stars. So definitely not my favorite one of hers, but I still loved it. It was still 4 stars. Like that's a book that I really did enjoy. And this one is a sliding doors situation. So we meet a woman who is at a bar and she's there with one of her friends. She runs into an ex-boyfriend of hers. So she is giving an ultimatum to where she can either go home with her friend that she went to the bar with and her life is going to go this way, or she can go home with her ex-boyfriend and her life is going to go this way. And you see both these situations happening simultaneously. So you see where she goes and what happens in her life if she goes this way and makes that decision, and what happens if she goes this way and makes this decision. So you're seeing them both happen at the same time. So it was really interesting to see how like one decision can really make or break your life. And, you know, just something to think about for sure. Like when you're making a big decision, that doesn't seem like a big decision, but it really is, because her life goes in two very different ways. So it was really interesting, but I did really enjoy it. And the audiobook is fantastic. Julia Whalen, always and forever, is one of the best audiobook narrators that there is. So it was really good. Okay. And then I was able to make The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas count for a prompt, and I was so happy. So I participated in a read-along of this book that happened over the summer. It was from the beginning of June to the middle of August, and so we took the entire summer to read it, and I read it, and I was so happy. I did listen to this one on audio as well, but it was fantastic, and I gave this book 5 stars. I loved it. I thought it was great. This one has water on the cover right here, because this is an island. So there's water on the cover, and I was so happy because that was one of our prompts. And so I was able to make it work for the bingo. So I was really excited about that. And this is a classic. It is a classic story of revenge. There is a man who is framed for a crime that he did not commit. And he goes to jail. And while he's in jail, he learns, number one, that he was framed, and number two, who framed him. And he makes an escape from jail, and he has figured out a way to get revenge on these people. And it was fantastic. So I really enjoyed it a lot. It was really great. Okay, the next one I have here is The Sea of Tranquility. This is by Katia Malay. And this one is fulfilling a prompt of a book with a summer buzzword in the title. I consider sea, S-E-A, to be a summer buzzword. Why not? So I made it work for me. Definitely. My buddy read this with Linda, and this is a young adult book full of angst to the nth degree, which I can understand sometimes, but this was like, okay. So we're dealing with 2 teenagers who are in very, very adult situations, and they're not they're handling things their own way, which I completely did not understand. So, I just spent the whole book going, why are you doing that? Why is this the decision that you're making? This doesn't make any sense. You're pretending to be an adult, but you're acting like a teenager. Like, it was just one of those things where I was like, if you want to be an adult, act like one. Don't pretend to be an adult and then act like a teenager. Just come on. So yeah, I kind of rolled my eyes through most of this book, which is very, very unpopular. This is a very, very high rating on Goodreads. People love this book, which is why I picked it up. Nope. Myself and Linda also did not really enjoy this book. So this one was a 2-star for me. Womp. But I did read it, and it counted. Then I picked up another book that I had picked for my summer TBR as well, and that is Reckless Girls. This is by Rachel Hawkins, and this one was also a book for the bingo board with flowers on the cover, so definitely some pretty flowers on the cover of this book, and I really enjoyed this book. I read it, I started this during our reading retreat actually, and I read almost half of it during the retreat, which was awesome, and then it took me a little bit to get back to it because just things were happening. I was getting pretty busy, and reading was kind of taking a little bit of time for me, but I did end up finishing it. And yeah, I really liked it. I gave it 4 stars. This follows some young 20-somethings living in Hawaii, and they end up being hired to take this pair of other 20-somethings out to an island that's like in a deserted island. It's kind of known for being creepy and haunted, and, you know, like bad things can happen there. So it's made it into kind of a touristy destination, if you will. So our couple gets hired to charter out some people who want to go out there, and they go with them and have an adventure, and things happen. So I did really enjoy this book a lot. There's a lot of cursing in it, which I have heard Rachel Hawkins is kind of known for. So if cursing a lot, like over, like excessive cursing bothers you, She may not be the author for you. I'm just going to leave that there. But it didn't bother me quite as much. But even I was like, okay, this is a lot. I was like, wow, there's a lot of cursing in here. And I'm definitely someone like the cursing doesn't bother me, but it was kind of excessive. But I did really enjoy it. I gave it 4 stars, and I'll definitely read more. Okay, and the last one that I read, and the last one to cross off and give me a full blackout on this board, was Book Lovers by Emily Henry. And this was the prompt to read a book that had the word book or list in the title. So book is definitely in the title of this one. And I loved this. I have a reading vlog for it. This was one of my most anticipated reads of the entire year. It did not disappoint. I gave it 5 stars. I did not love the main character's sister. That's a little bit of a point of contention. People are very divided on the sister in this book, on either they did like her or they didn't like her. I'm on camp didn't like. I thought she was in the way. I thought she was just making decisions that didn't make sense and just keeping secrets that didn't need to be kept, and just like, why is that a secret? Like, it just didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I felt like it was reaching as far as her storyline goes. Like, if you're going to keep secrets, make it a good one. You know what I mean? So like, I don't know. I didn't like it. I didn't like that. But other than that, it was fantastic. And I still gave it 5 stars. So there is that. The banter in this book, I live for. I loved it so much. The chemistry between these 2 characters was obvious and palpable. And yeah, so another hit for me. And that's it, guys. Those are all the books that I read for our summertime bingo board, and the prompts that I was able to knock off as far as activities go. Basically, it was everything, and it was so much fun. I loved keeping that on my bulletin board and crossing things off. And even my girls were keeping up with it. They were like, Mom, are you going to read a book with stars on the cover? You better hurry up. I'm like, I'm on it. Leave me alone. So it was a lot of fun. Let me know if you guys participated in the summertime bingo board. I know I was seeing a lot of them going around on Instagram. Let me know how you guys did. And also make sure you go check out Lindsay today and see how she did on hers, because she's going to tell us how she did as well and what she read. And we will see you guys again soon. Hope you have a great day.